I've got the fourth round fitted, sanded. I've got the scarf fitted here. I've got it all ready to go on or be nailed on. I did have to do a bit of fiddling at the front here. I didn't realize it before, but the front planks didn't quite line up. They do now. Both sides ready to be nailed. The grain on this wood is not my favorite, but I decided to use it up here where it's going to be painted or it's not going to be visible. The next one, I am going to want a very good piece of wood for. You can see here's where the water line is. The front plank, I guess I'm going to leave that. It's sometimes the hardest part is knowing where to stop. This plank here, which is the sixth round on the port aft side, is really kind of shattered. At this point of the game, I'm thinking it would be a shame not to do that, especially if I am going to fiberglass the bottom. You want to make sure that the next two generations are going to be dead before you have to do anything under the fiberglass. So I'm going to take this plank out. You can see it's got some pretty big checks here. This is not my favorite thing to do because this is the back plank. The back plank, the hardest part about the back plank, changing one of these, is I'm going to have to get all these nails out, but I'll get to that in a minute. But the hardest part about a back plank is when the boat was built, I'm sure they always put the back plank on first because you lay the front one on top of it because that's the direction the scarves go. Coming up to the scarf here, I'm not sure whether I'm going to use that exact scarf. I might just shorten this and make the scarf right about here, up a little bit further. But the hardest part about a back plank is that you have to make it fit perfectly at the back and then tuck it in behind the front plank at the same time getting the bevels all correct. So this is I've been thinking about this. I'm going to put this plank in before I put in the shutter plank. The shutter plank is the last one here. The shutter plank is going to need to have the bevel perfectly fitted here and also here. And then it's going to be a two-person job to nail it in place. So when I do this plank, if I have this plank off before I nail it on, I'll have room to get my hand in here to back up the nails. So I will have this plank in, and then after this plank is in, the last thing to do will be these four planks here, which will close up the hole. So that's about where I am now. Okay, I'm under the boat now. I'm getting ready to take out this one plank at the back that I want to get changed. The normal way I would do this would be to take a punch and punch this nail here. That would just make the head on the outside pop up enough to grab it with some side cutters and pull it out. The problem with that is where I am, I don't think the boat is solid enough to be doing that, to be pounding on it. So I've got another alternative method that I've developed, and I've got the vibrating tool with a metal blade or metal cutting blade on it, and I'm just going to cut off the fish hook part of the clench nail, or the clenched part of the nail, and then hopefully it'll be pretty easy to worry the head of the nail out. I'm going to give this a shot here in a couple of the nails, and then I'll go to the outside and see how it works. Okay, I'm at the front of the plank here. I've got all of the nails trimmed from the inside. I'm just looking at this scarf here, and I think by the time I fish those little tacks out of both sides of the scarf, I'm not really going to have anything I want to fasten to left. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the plank straight off here, and then no, that one's not going to work either. I guess I can, because this rib here is going to be changed, so I can just cut this rib off here. I can cut the plank straight here and then recut the scarf. That way I can lay this in and then just measure how far it is to the scarf, or where I want to make the scarf to. The front is always the thick end of the scarf on the inside. The skinny end will be out here, so then I will be able to trim this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this plank off straight here as best I can, and then I'll recut the scarf. I've got the most of the nails out of that plank that I'm taking out, but since this is the back plank, it's going to be a little tough to fit in. I'm not going to make the angle perfectly square here. I'm going to make it at a slight angle so it's easier to tuck it in. And I'm just going to mark this here so I get a straight line. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this rib out, because it's pretty well shot anyway. There's nothing left at the top. I might as well just cut it off down to here, and then I'll be able to cut the scarf here. I want to cut the scarf before I take this plank out, because then I can make measurements, so I know I'm using this plank as a pattern. I'll know how far to extend this plank to the back here. And what I'll do is I'll steam this plank, but I won't cut the scarf until after it's steamed. Once it's got the twist in it, then I will cut the scarf, because I don't want to put a little feather edge into the steam box. I don't like, the results aren't that predictable when you do that. So anyway, what I'm going to do is cut this off, and then I'll cut the scarf, and then I'll be taking the plank out. Cut line to the where I'm going to have the inside of the scarf, which will be the end of the new plank. It is a little bit tapered, so from this end, it's, or at the top edge, it's 2.5 inches. The bottom end, it's about 2 3/8. So I'll just make a notation on there, so I don't forget when I lay this plank onto the new material. I always go from the inside up, so this will be visible. I'll know how much to add from this cut line. In case my lines get deleted, I can always look at this video again and say, hey, that's what I was doing. I've also cut this rib off, so now I can get my vibrating saw in here and just rough off the plank. This is a very tedious job. I'll probably wind up finishing it, or roughing it off with the saw, and then I'll finish it with a sanding block. I'm back outside the boat now. I've got that scarf kind of roughed off to where I want it to be. Next job is to get the plank out with as much or a minimal amount of damage to the one beside it. It's a little challenging here because it looks like there's been a lot of fiberglass resin kind of poured into the lap where it was open, so it's kind of glued together. I'm also trying to preserve the top edge of the plank I'm taking out. When I have that on the bench, I will use the width of that top of that plank as a reference. Okay, I've got the old plank from round 6 at the back here. I've got the new material roughed out. And what I'm going to do now is this face here, the only part that is beveled on this plank, it will be the gain. Because I'm fitting my gain from round 5 into this, I will make this one 20 and then the next one will be 18 that fits into this. On the other side here, I'm going to have to follow what they used originally. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a straight edge. I just use the edge of the plane here and just see where the transition starts. It seems to be about there, which isn't quite as long as my gains. I'm just going to mark this here, measure that, and it's actually about 18 inches on the new one, which we'll have to tuck into the existing boat. Anyway, I'm going to lay out and cut the gain on the easy side first, and then I'm going to flip the plank over, and then I will do the gain on this side. And I'm also going to have to just systematically go along and check the width here, which will give me an idea of roughing out the bevel. This is probably one of the hardest things to do on a lap straight plank, which is why I always find it easier to do a run of planking rather than a plank here and a plank there, because this probably takes up as much time as doing a full round, just doing one plank, doing it this way. Here I'm not making the gain over 18 inches. I've just taken it off of where the straight part is on the old plank. This is a pretty tricky thing to do, getting a plank that you're going to tuck in. I'm using my 7/8 lap as a guide. When I get this steamed and I'm ready for the final fit, I'll have to do a little bit of tweaking on this. I did notice there's not a lot of twist in this plank, which is good. It makes it easier. Notice this gain. It's going to tuck into the existing wood, so the little rabbit here, the notch I'm making, is not quite as deep as the rest of the ones where I've done it. Now, to get a rough start of the bevel, this is the bevel that I'm going to have to tuck into the existing planking. So I'll go along with the plane here, and just by eye, I've got the old plank up here. I'm holding my plane up here, just measuring the gap distance away from straight. I'm also using the thickness of the edge here to compare to the new material. If I go back here, which is where the biggest roll of the boat is, you can see the edge of the plank is actually very thin. It's maybe 1/8 of an inch. So when I'm doing the bevel, just gonna have to keep an eye on my new plank here to make sure that that matches about 1/8 of an inch. It's a hard thing to explain. It's just kind of, after 35 years, it's kind of a bit of an instinct. I kind of look at it and I can tell by the feel in my hand when it's right. Anyway, that's kind of where I start from, is just the old plank, where the bevel is, or the thickness here, and using a straight edge across the face of the plank. A little more challenging on this one here because there is probably 3/8 of an inch of curve in this plank, which is quite a bit. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and bevel this and carry on from there. Okay, I've gone along the new plank and just having a quick look at it. This is the bevel that I've cut on it. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a small radius on the inside edge here that'll make it easier to tuck it in. And I've erred on the side of leaving it too big on the inside because when I'm fitting the plank, when I push it down, if I notice a bigger gap, I can always shave a little bit off of the inside here. It's easier than adding it on. So I'm just going to put a little rabbet on here, or a radius on the inside of the plank so it's easier to slide in. Then what I'm going to do is, because there is a bit of a twist in it, I haven't nailed in round 4 yet at the back here, so I'm going to take out number 4. I'm going to steam the plank and then use position 4 to clamp the plank on the boat and let it take its set. That way, as the planks go up, there's less and less twist, so that further down it's going to be overbending it, which is what I want, because I want it a little bit overbent. It makes it easier to fit. So I'm going to fire up the steam box and get that plank in there, and we'll clamp it over the boat, let it take its set. Just down at the lumber yard here, I've got looking at a lift of white oak for the ribs. It's not always available. I have a lumber yard I deal with that lets me pick through it before it goes into the kiln. After it's kiln dried, it's not any good for steam bending, but I'm not ready for it yet, but I just thought I'd get it before the trade war starts. I'm just cleaning up the, I guess this is plank number 7 here. I'm cleaning up the inside here to make it easier to slide the number 6 in here that I've already pre-made. It's just pretty tedious work here. There's a lot of dried polyester resin, varnish, and just general crap in here. It seems that almost every dippy I've worked on at one point has been painted green, because when you take the boat apart, even if somebody has stripped it before, there's always green paint, it seems, in the spots where you can't get at. But anyway, I'm just going along here with sandpaper, scrapers, chisels, trying to make a fair surface here. Any bumps are going to invite a crack in the new plank, so it's just important to get this clean, even though it is daunting, a very tedious job here. Where I feel lumps, sometimes I get a chisel in there, get my hand around here with a scraper. getting close to being where I want it to be with this plank. I did notice though that I did line it up on the inside, but here I've just put a batten on here to, I've got a little bit I want to take off just so I don't have a hump in the plank coming up with the scarf. So I probably had this plank in and out about 5 times now. It's going to be a few more times by the time I'm done. Then I'll get ready and nail it in. I've made the plank a little bit long. In this case I can see where I've got to fit the end of the plank to the stern post a little bit more. I've been all along the inside, and I've made sure the altitude is the same, so it's covering the old mark on the round number 7 here. And going along, I'm just looking at the bevel here. The other thing is the angle of the plank is important. I've got these little straps just in here to make sure the plank is at the right angle to the ribs, because as you tilt the plank, the curve will change in relation to the other plank. When I put it in, I deliberately made the scarf a little bit longer, so that's going to have to be massaged into place. The other thing is on the inside, it's at the right elevation here, but the plank is just a little bit thicker, so I've clamped a batten onto the old plank, or onto the new plank and the old plank, just to make sure it's a fair continuation of the front plank. So a couple more times in and out, massaging it here and there, and then I'll be ready to nail it in, I hope. I've got the number 6 back port plank nailed in. I've nailed all of the laps. I've only done a few of the ribs. Before I forget too, I mean that the number 7 plank had a big crack in it. I don't think it justifies changing the plank since it's high enough above the waterline, but the plank was misaligned, so what I've done, when I have the opportunity to get a clamp on it, I've just put some epoxy in there in the split, which was quite wide, and holding it together. Now that the other thing I did is to make sure that this plank is at the right angle, is I made up these little blocks here which will simulate the thickness of the next plank when it goes in. And I've just clamped it to make sure that the plank is sitting in the correct angle. Anyway, things are coming along. It's almost the end of January now. The one thing I've noticed about doing this type of work is spring seems to come pretty quickly, sometimes too quickly. So just carrying on here. I'm going to try and get some help tomorrow. I have number 4 round. It's all fitted, scarfed, ready to go in. It's just where it is, I have not got enough room to get my fat hand under there to back up the nail, so I'm going to have to find somebody to put under the boat.